Welcome to the Startup Grind. So let me introduce Allie Pincus. Allie, she hails from Long Beach, California, LBC. She attended UC Berkeley. She has also attended and received her MBA at UCLA. She worked for NBC. She worked for a number of different companies, and she most recently has founded One Kings Lane, which has raised $117 million, and is a site we're going to hear all about tonight. In addition to that, she's a mother of 3-year-old twins. Yeah, I have 2 kids. Kids are good. Have kids. Good institution. So without further ado, let's invite Allie Pincus up. Here we go. Keep it going. Keep it going. Raise it up. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay, that was amazing. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Did you literally just get here from the conference, or have you been back today, or did you just fly in today, or what? Where have you been? What have you been doing?
I actually flew back late last night. Is this working?
Yeah, can you hear it? No? Let's see. Try it again, Allie. Is that better?
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about where you grew up, what your parents did, what your dad did for work, what your mom did, and your family. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. I will. But I just want to say thank you so very much for coming and wanting to hear the story about One Kings Lane. And it's really fun to tell it, and I'm really honored to be here. So thank you.
Thank you for coming.
My story. I am from Long Beach, California. My parents, my dad's a doctor, and my mom was an amazing and is an amazing mother. And I just feel so fortunate to have received such good guidance from my parents. And I have 2 sisters,
Okay.
an older sister and a younger sister.
And were you entrepreneurial? Is this something that were you starting businesses as a kid, or were you just, what, is that something that's come later, or is that something that started early?
You know what? I think it actually came later for me, but I always had ideas, and I think I never really had perhaps the confidence to go out and do it. And perhaps it's probably tied to not feeling really good about 1 or 2 of the ideas, right? So, I think we all know this, that when we start our businesses, you are basically thinking about your business nonstop, and that really allows you to get through what you need to get through to build your business.
Yeah. So you come up to Northern California. You go to UC Berkeley. What is your plan? What were you thinking you were going to do? What did you study when you got there?
So I went to Cal, and I graduated in 1996.
Okay.
And my major was conservation and resource studies. So it was in the School of Forestry. And when I graduated, I was actually really interested in the web and what the web was doing. And for a time, I was really confused. Do I go to DC and take a job in the green space, and I was thinking really hard about that. Or do I want to pursue this other passion that I had, which was the internet? And 2 summers before, I had interned at the White House. And I got to work on the GLOBE program, which was this initiative that Vice President Gore had created, which was...
This was when he created the internet, or this was a different time?
So GLOBE was this very special program that was connecting students around the country and using the web to basically get their data.
Huh.
And I interned on that program in the summer of '94. And it was at that experience that I realized, and I learned about Gopher, and then I came back to Berkeley in the fall. And this was the fall of '94, and then we had Netscape. And everything changed. And then all of a sudden, we had these amazing computer labs at Berkeley. So
And did you start using them? I mean, were you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, obviously, I had my little laptop and stuff, but yeah, I
Yeah.
loved going into the various labs at school. And so basically, fast forwarding 2 years, when I graduated in '96, I really knew that I wanted to get into the web. And it's also really sort of important to share that I was always interested in the entertainment space. I had grown up in Long Beach, which is not too far away from LA, the center and the hub of Hollywood. So I was really interested at that sort of intersection between the internet and Hollywood. So that's actually where I went after
Yeah.
graduation.
So you went back and you worked for NBC, is that right?
That was my first job. Actually, my first job out of college that summer, I worked for Liz Heller, and Liz ran all the internet initiatives for Capitol Records. And she was this amazing mentor, and she's still in my life. And I just feel so lucky to have had that start with her. And then I basically knew that that job was just for the summer. And then I moved over to NBC.com, and it was a very interesting time. It was the fall of '96, so it was post-Summer Olympics, and the team at NBC.com had, done a lot of great things for the Olympics. And that fall and winter and spring, there was just tremendous momentum, especially on the company side in terms of really thinking about how the internet was going to play with on-air programming. So, and I was an assistant producer. That was my job, and I got to work on a variety of great initiatives, including a chat business that we created with Yahoo called the NBC Live Studio at Yahoo, which was a lot of fun.
And so you work at NBC. You also worked at Walt Disney. Is that right?
Yeah. So about 2 years into it, NBC had changed sort of their strategy for how they were basically running their web business. They basically outsourced the business to US Web, and at that point, the Walt Disney Company was putting tremendous resources into building out the Go network.
Yep.
Actually, I joined the Walt Disney Internet Group before Go was announced, and it was just a really fascinating time, especially what was happening in terms of all the investments that the studios and production companies were making in the web at that point.
And tell us about, so you're down in LA. How did you get back up to Northern California?
Okay, so after working at NBC and Disney, I went to grad school at UCLA, and I was there for another 3 years, because I stayed in, actually 2.5 years, because I stayed in Los Angeles for 6 months after graduating. It was very hard to get a job in 2002, and so I consulted. And then I moved to New York because I was offered a job at Virgin Mobile, which was an MVNO, and it was a joint venture between Sprint and Virgin, and I was actually really interested, sort of also in terms of their entertainment angle that they were taking. They had done this very large deal with MTV, and music and pop culture was a very big part of what they were doing.
Very cool. So you were in New York.
So I moved to New York in early 2003.
Okay. And then tell us what happened next.
So I worked there, and it was a great job, and I worked on the sales team, and I got to travel around, and that's where I learned a lot about promotions and, moving product, right? And how to move things, and how to think about product, and how to think about, making sure that you're as competitive as the next guy over. And it was a really great experience, because at that point, mobile was really interesting, particularly in the MVNO space. And about 1.5 years into it, I actually had moved jobs. I moved to a job in New York City because commuting to New Jersey from New York was really hard. Spending 3 to 4 hours a day in the car was just very brutal. And also, I was traveling to our clients, to Best Buy and Musicland and Safeway a lot. So there was a lot of travel, but just the travel time in the car was really hard. And driving in New York is not fun.
Sure.
And I got to go work for Simon Fuller's company. He's the guy that created American Idol. It's actually a very big global brand. And I got to do business development for 19 Entertainment, Simon's company. And at that point, Simon and his team were obviously hard at work on all the Idol properties around the world. And then he he was also creating a dance show called So You Think You Can Dance, and I was there, and I got to work on that property. And of course, Simon also manages big personalities, people like the Beckhams, so that was also a really fun project to see
That's
all the
cool.
things that he was doing. And I got to learn a lot from Simon and all the people around
You
Simon.
work directly with him?
I worked for his number
His
one
team.
person,
Mm.
and I was in the U.S. They were, of course, based in London, and that was an incredible experience. And then 2 years later, they sold the company, and then I started consulting for like 6 months until I found a job, and I moved over to Hachette Philippaki, and I was there for a year and a half, about a year and a half, and then I started One Kings Lane.
Wow. So tell us about how did you meet your co-founder, Susan Feldman? Tell us about how that where that started, how that started.
So Susan and I met through email. It's a fun story,
Really?
right? Yeah.
Someone introduced you, I imagine. or not?
Someone did introduce us.
Okay.
Lisa Stone, who's the founder of BlogHer, introduced Susan and I through email. And Susan is one of the most extraordinary women I think I've ever met. And Susan is a merchandising goddess. She is a visionary, and she's just has more energy than anyone I know. And Susan obviously came from the apparel industry and was a very senior executive at Warnaco, for example, for about 14 years. And Warnaco was a multi-billion-dollar business that basically worked on some of the most prestigious brands and built out, private label businesses for big brands. So Susan had the idea and vision for wanting to start a flash sale site in the home decor space. And so Lisa introduced us, and Susan was looking for a partner, and she wanted someone who had perhaps a little more digital experience, and maybe someone who could really just be her partner. And we were introduced, and we couldn't stop talking about the idea. And we were emailing all the time and talking, and Susan always says, she goes, you know what, if we're going to keep talking about this, that's fine, but if we're going to do something, let's get together.
Yeah.
So we had our first date, and I flew to LA.
You'd never met.
No, we'd never met.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked on the phone nonstop and emailed. I mean, this was
Skyped
going
a
on.
little bit.
We actually didn't
Text.
Skype. We would text, and this was going on for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And so I remember quite vividly getting into her car. So funny, here's this person I'd been communicating with nonstop for 3 or 4 weeks. And that afternoon, she was basically interviewing me.
She picked you up on the curb or something, or what do you
She
mean?
did pick me up on the curb.
That's a red
outside
flag.
Southwest Airlines in
That's a
Burbank.
red flag.
The first time she told the story, she said LAX. I go, Susan, you never got me at LAX. It was Burbank Airport. But so that afternoon, we were, brainstorming in person, unlike doing it on the phone. And then that night, the night was interesting because her husband joined us. And Bob Feldman, her husband, is also a very remarkable and amazing person. And I think, had to pass the Bob test.
And so you're brainstorming that day, and what out of that meeting, what was the conclusion? Where did you get to by the end of that, or over the course of a couple days, maybe, or?
So this was probably, I think, the second week of October, and
This is in 2008?
in 2008. And then October 31st, I apologize. October 30th, she had flown up to San Francisco because her father was having an art show, and I was going to be her guest at her dad's art show. And we agreed that we would go and visit Trina, my friend who was a graphic designer, and start working on the logo. So we knew we were doing it, but we hadn't officially shook hands. And I can now recall that as we were driving, we were on, I think, the 101, almost at the airport, and she was like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're 50-50 partners, and I'm so excited,
Huh.
and I'm going to leave my job at the end of November, and it happened.
Huh.
And by December 8th, we were already in New York. So fast forward 6 weeks, pitching brands and making sure that we could start lining up all of our inventory for when we launched the business in March, late March.
Wow. So you have so you start building the product, or who's building the product? It's assuming you're not a coder, right?
I did. I don't code, but my first job at NBC, I used to
You did.
code HTML,
Okay. Awesome.
which was great. I haven't touched code since 1998. But so we found this.
So you built the under construction page or something.
No, I used to build pages. But so we found this remarkable company called Ospient, and they were basically our one-stop shop for our business. So they are an e-commerce solution for a variety of brands. And, when we started our business, we bootstrapped the business. We didn't raise any money. It was our project. We didn't start the business thinking, oh, we're going to revolutionize the home category, or we're going to totally disrupt X, Y, and Z. This was just our passion play. We were really, really enthusiastic and obsessed with thinking about how flash sales needed to exist in the home category. And home actually means a lot of things. So the way that we initially thought about it, it was okay, anything that goes inside your home or outside your home. So we started in one place, which was decorative accessories, and then over time we evolved, so you start out with candles and we started out with candles and diffusers and pillows, and then we had to work our way into bedding, because as you can imagine, figuring out how to sell bedding was complicated. I mean, there was some complicated stuff to it.
Sure.
And how do you get into furniture, and how do you think about packaging, china, right? There's all this stuff that we had to think about. And so I think the key notion for us was let's see if our idea works.
Yeah.
Let's bootstrap it. And also, it's important to remember that when we started this thing, it was the fall of 2008.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Was it the Great Recession?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it was. And
Guess you couldn't have. Couldn't even think about raising, even if you'd. You just were just doing it. You guys were doing it for yourselves.
yeah, this was our little thing. And we were exceptionally passionate and really focused. And all we could think about was this idea, and how could we build One Kings Lane into this great destination.
So in December you go to New York, you start pitching these brands, and what was the reception that you got? You've got no product, right? You've essentially got this. Or maybe you did, but
And maybe it's helpful to sort of talk about that, and also
Yeah.
maybe just to give you guys a sense of where we are today. Would that be helpful to just sort of put it into context?
sure,
So today we launch about 2,000 new products every day
sure.
on our site. And we cover all the categories for the home. So that means furniture to lighting to tabletop to art to accessories to vintage product to antiques to artisanal product to jewelry, because jewelry is now a category that we think is just a fabulous sort of category that obviously makes sense for home. So, over the past 4+ years, the business has really evolved. And we have over 8 million members. We add 2,000 or 2,000 plus new SKUs every day.
Wow.
We have 450 employees. We have offices. We're co-located in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. And, it's it's also really important to think about sort of what was happening in terms of the shelter magazine landscape. So around '09 and also 2010 and 2011, a bunch of home magazines had been shut down and closed by the major publishing houses. So there were magazines like Home, Metropolitan Home, and Domino, which were amazing resources for people who love to think about decorating and design. And those magazines were no longer.
Yeah.
So something that we always thought about and dreamed about was how could One Kings Lane be this really great resource for people who want that information,
Yeah.
who need that guidance in terms of thinking about their home. So that was also always sort of part of
So
our
is this
philosophy.
like this, you're saying there's this opportunity at that time because of these other market factors that these things were kind of going away, and there was this opportunity, there was this kind of void to fill that
Yeah.
you guys could fill.
Yeah, and we were just thinking about how could we, be a great shopping destination, but also help to solve people's questions or problems and just actually be a great resource. So if you go to One Kings Lane today, and if you look at our top nav bar, there's a whole area to the top right where you can click into our content. Because we actually think that providing tips and daily inspiration is helpful for our audience, and we want to be that guiding factor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you and your partner, just only a couple years ago, I think, someone can stand in and say, oh, it's this $117 million funded company, you're making all this money, you all these products. But at one point, you were what most people in this room would have been, which was two people in a room, figuring out, taking an idea and taking it from nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Right. So, I wonder, to me, I think that piece of how do you even do that? How do you go from, so you and your partner brainstorm this idea, and then you start pitching. We've all been in that situation where you don't have a product yet, or you're building the product and you're trying to convince people that this is something they should believe in, they should invest their time, their interest, and their energy in. And I just wonder, for you guys, what was that like? How did you sell that? How did you do that deal? You're a deal person. How did you make that sale to just get it going?
Well, I think that we were very fortunate to have each other.
Yeah.
Right? Susan and I were really fortunate to have that companionship, to have that partnership, and to be able to bounce ideas off of each other. And as you guys all know, when you're knee deep in something, it's oftentimes really hard to explain X, Y, and Z to your best friend or your mentor or someone who you want to seek guidance from. But if you're lucky enough to have a partner or someone who's in it with you, you're just accruing tons and tons of knowledge on a daily basis. And for us, we brought various talents to the table, and it was just really great teamwork. And I think it's also important in terms of thinking about teamwork that the first two women who joined us are still with us and are absolutely phenomenal leaders and executives, Day and Pamela, and they're still part of the company. And, this whole idea of teamwork was always core to who we were. And then, of course, Susie and I brought on our third partner, Doug. So we brought on a CEO in June of 2010, and Doug gave us the ability to scale in ways that we had dreamed about.
Yeah.
So, and he had just phenomenal experience and background, and, we feel so fortunate that he was interested in One Kings Lane and the opportunity.
And so those first two women that you hired that are still with you, when did they join the company?
So we started talking to Pamela in, I believe, it was the fall of '08, and
Okay.
then she.
Super early.
So yeah, we had a lunch with her in November of '08, and then then Day had started working actually in January, and then I think Pamela's first day was early February.
And you, in your first, when did you launch the site in March? Is
We
that
did
right?
March 30th.
March 30th. And what did you launch on the first day? What happened?
We had some great brands.
Huh.
We had Serena and Lily. We had, what was the candle company? Oh my gosh. Well, we just had I'm sorry, I'm just like exhausted right now and I can't remember the exact brands, but we knew the proprietors, we knew the owners of the companies, and like, they were like almost sort of taking a gamble. Like we were this little thing, and
Yeah.
they had to think about their relationships with Macy's or Bloomies. When I said to Lily, the owner of Serena and Lily, when I said, "Hey, Daily Candy's gonna be featuring us. Would you be in the article?" Like we had to really talk about it because she had to really think about her business in Bloomingdale's.
Yeah.
And what sort of signal was this going to send to Bloomingdale's?
Yep.
So right away we had to be very cognizant about, wanting to make sure that we were a great partner to our brands, to the people bringing us all the supply.
At this point, you're still bootstrapping. Or had you taken and
Had we raised money?
did
No.
you raise money at that point? You had
No,
raised
we
money.
raised money in the fall of '09.
Okay. So from March 30th to April 30th, what happened? That first month, what happened?
In that first month. So I think a memory that I'm very.
If you blacked it all out.
No,
or-
I have not blacked it all out. There's a couple key memories. So one very special memory to us was the day, our goal was to launch with 5,000 people on our mailing list.
Huh.
And we did.
Wow.
Actually, that morning, our partner at Ospient had called Susan and said, "Susan, you're at 5,000." And I think they had talked like really early that morning. And it was funny in our relationship with Susan, like she would go to bed on the earlier side and I would stay up really late.
Huh.
So we sort of had different hours. So I think I was sleeping when they had that conversation. And so Dawn said to Susan, "You guys are at 5,000.
Wow.
And she said, "Awesome, go send the email." And
And this is just these 5,000 are these. I mean, is this you guys just hustling your friends? Like, is this anyone you know? People of, I mean, who are these people? Who
so
are,
the way that we built our business initially was you had to be invited to join.
Okay.
There was a garden wall around the business. You had to
Yeah.
be invited in. So basically how we got to these 5,000 people was through ambassadors, people who we basically picked 100 people. And these 100 individuals helped us to get to those 5,000 people. And we also ran a sweepstakes. The sweepstakes was enter your name and get entered to win an Hermes throw.
Huh.
And, oh boy.
That was pretty hot.
Yeah, I mean, Hermes is like one of the most established, most incredible brands in the world. And we were probably a little nuts to think that we could launch our business on the back of like win an Hermes throw.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty
did.
crazy.
Yeah.
But our attorney said it was okay.
But you didn't partner with them. You just bought one.
We bought one.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Sure.
So that 5,000 mark was a very special memory. And for us, we always tried to set goals and to achieve the goals. That was one memory. The second memory was I had said to Susan 3 months earlier, I said, when we launch, it would be spectacular if we could be listed in Daily Candy. And so I started working on that Daily Candy relationship in December. And I remember I took Susan to the Daily Candy office in New York 3 months before we launched. And here we were showing mock-ups of what we thought the site would look like. And what's funny, and I say what it would look like because we took that meeting in December, 3 months before we launched. And then in January, we said, oh my gosh, we need to change this whole thing. We have to change it. And we basically found a new design firm in January. And we interviewed them in December, and they joined us in January, I think. And their name is Red Antler. They're incredible, and I have so much respect for them, and they do awesome design work. And we said to them, we got to rethink the palette of our website. And, that's, like, we loved our logo, but in that very short period of time, because we wanted to launch, our goal was to launch in March.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not much time to, like, rethink the palette and all the buttons and the whole look. But I think it was also good because our partner, Ospient, the one-stop shop commerce company that we worked with, who built the site, they built the site, they managed the site, and they were also our warehouse partner. So there were, as there are with any sort of shop like that, there was, they were very clear and said we could do this or we could do that. And I think it's actually very good when you're sort of restricted about all the things that you want to do, but it's very good to know that there are very clear sort of guidelines about, okay, if you want to hit your March launch, this is the shopping cart. This is how you should think probably about your homepage. This is how you should probably think about your flow. And obviously we would tweak things, and it was just a great partnership. And so we're forever grateful.
Talk to me. Tell us about the power of scarcity, like this idea that, like, and what do you guys? How do you think about it? This idea that you're going to launch something, it's only going to be there for so long, and you're only going to have so much inventory. How do you guys think about it? How does that even work?
Yeah. So for those of you who've never been on One Kings Lane who don't know anything about our business, we run 3-day events on onekingslane.com. And also, we have a fantastic iPhone app, and we're actually coming out with some new apps, like, in the next week or so. So we're very excited. So we run daily events, and the expiration is 3 days, and we launch new product every single day. And so to answer your question, given that there is a finite number and there's limited time, those are forcing factors for people to have to make a decision. And what's interesting is during the early days, you would see a lot of sold out tags, because that's what was happening. And over time, we got better and much smarter about how we thought about supply, and actually truly partnering with the manufacturers and brands that we work with, because there's sort of that fine line between wanting scarcity, but also wanting to make sure there's enough supply for your audience.
You guys have pretty much the whole time stayed focused on home decor, right? And there's all these other sites there are now people that are doing some of that, but they're doing 10 other things. Can you talk about why or how you all stayed so focused on that one vertical, and how important that was for you all in terms of building your brand or building your product?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been part of the mission, was to be focused on home.
Yeah.
And it just was, we were very clear. And of course, you might think for a second, oh, well, what if we did X, Y, and Z? And yeah, you can always dream, but no, the most important thing for us was always to be really focused and to know our category and to have expertise in the category, and to also build really good partnerships. And at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, we always think that we have 2 customers. We have, all of our brand partners, and there's thousands of brands that we work with, and the brands they provide all the supply. And then we have all of our end shoppers, the consumers. And so these are our 2 audiences, and to really make sure that we were satisfying both of them, it's imperative that we be, exceptionally knowledgeable, productive, and good at what we do. So it just requires intense focus. and it's a category that we love.
Will you tell us a little bit about what you're talking about, these great brands. In your mind, what makes up a great brand? What does that mean? Like, what attributes does a great brand have? Do they have the same kind of makeup? Is everyone different? What to you constitutes? Because you guys have a great brand. I mean, you
Thank
do
you.
have a great brand. So how do you all think about branding and?
So I think you sort of asked me two questions. So the first question, how do we think about like what makes a good brand in terms of like a brand to be on One Kings Lane? You know, it's really about who delivers a great product,
Mm-hmm.
and where can our shoppers feel confident. And you know, with anything, you know, brand speaks volume. A really good brand speaks volumes, and it can be a very helpful guide in terms of making decisions. But what's so interesting about the home category is sort of unlike apparel. You know, in the apparel business, people are very cognizant and aware of the brands that they like.
Mm.
But in home, you know, the average population might know 10 brands, and that's great. But the home industry is very different than the apparel business. So when we were building and architecting One Kings Lane, the retailer became the big brand in terms of we wanted to be, you know, we wanted to be that great guide for our shopper. And what does that mean? That means providing an exceptional shopping experience, providing really good supply, having excellent customer care, making sure people are knowledgeable when you call with problems, and being able to really take care of our audiences, whether that be our shoppers or on the other side, our brand partners.
Did you all, when you were just starting out, is that something that you all talked about that you're focused on in terms of, did you say, hey, we need to have a great brand, or did you just say, hey, we need to deliver and create a great product?
It was core to everything, and it was part of every single discussion. How do we over-deliver? How do we think about providing excellent experiences from, you know, we always thought about, you know, people shopped with us online, and they also dreamed with us if they weren't shopping with us. And we had that second chance to deliver happiness or to deliver goodness when people got our packages at their home, right? So we had to make sure that the experience online or on mobile was fantastic, but also how do we make sure that we can deliver on time great product into your home or into your home.
Can you talk about another thing that's changed dramatically in the last 3 or 4 years is the kind of the flash sales, the deals websites, right? I mean, Groupon had this huge kind of, it really felt like a couple years ago, every single startup I talked to was working on some sort of deal site, and now it kind of, the market's kind of consolidated into some very big players. But from what you all have seen, has that model? You guys were profitable your first month, right? I mean, you were the model.
We said we were cash flow positive.
Cash flow positive. Okay.
But then, as we all know, when you want to build scale, you have to invest in your business.
Sure.
Right? And over time, that's why we raised capital and took on investors, and of course, they're now our partners.
Have you seen that model? Has it shifted, or has it pretty much been the same as you guys originally envisioned it and then executed it in 2009? Now 2013. Does it still function the same? Does it still work the same?
So I think it's just helpful to sort of share with our audience that flash sales and daily deal sites, you know, were very different and have different, I think, overall philosophies and just different approaches. I mean, but
Explain the difference between that.
Well, I think so. You know, I think what's really fascinating about, to your point, you talked about Groupon. What's so interesting about Groupon is they provide deals across so many different categories,
Yeah.
right? From food to exercise to health to entertainment.
Yep.
I mean, they're like an A
They're
to
everything,
Z
yeah.
commerce player, which is so interesting. And God, you have to know there's just so much ground to cover when you're an
Yep.
A to Z player. And for us, I can just speak about our business. We're a vertical player. We're in home.
Yep.
And we are out working really hard, traveling everywhere, finding the best possible product that we can for our shoppers. And I don't want to begin to talk about anyone else's business because I'm not there and I don't know their
Sure.
businesses.
Yeah,
But I
sure.
can speak about my perspective on just how different they are. And also, we're building a repeat partnership with our brand partners. When we started our business, the goal was to run sales events with these brand partners 4 times a year. And we thought, we could be a great partner for these people at least 4 times a year and help them move end-of-life inventory. And that was always the goal in the beginning, was helping, our suppliers to move end-of-life inventory
Yeah.
or stuff that just didn't work in retail, right? And then obviously, as we gained experience and gained, the place that we did in the overall landscape, now things are so different. We're producing product with people. People are producing product for us. Like, it's now a very different conversation than it was when we started.
You are, we're going to take some questions here in just a few minutes from the audience, so please be ready for that. You are married to an entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
Your husband co-founded Zynga.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about when did you just very how long have you all been married? Were you a part of his whole? Because he's been an entrepreneur for basically his whole career almost, right? Have you?
Yeah.
Have you been? When
So
did
we've
you all
been
get
married almost 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
And the idea for Zynga, Mark started working on it after we started dating.
Okay. Wow.
So we met in December, and then by that next, March, he was already working on Zynga,
Yeah.
so 3 months later.
Can you talk about living in an entrepreneurial home? You've got ups and downs. I mean, every entrepreneur has these kind of
course.
huge highs and huge lows.
Yeah.
You have 2 people in the family who are kind of dealing with probably their own different things at work, in that regard. How do you all counterbalance that, and how do you all do that? I think a lot of people would think it would be very, very difficult to balance. It's hard to do with one person. It's probably much harder to do with 2 people. I don't know. Tell us.
Well, Mark's a great guide, and I look up to my husband a lot, and for many reasons. And I so enjoy learning from him and also partnering with Mark. And, I didn't start One Kings Lane saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. And, I just had this crazy passion for design. And we didn't really talk about this, but it's always sort of been a great passion of mine and great interest. And I remember as a kid always wanting to go to hotels and to see lobbies and new restaurants, and because that's where I had access to seeing great design, for example. But so back to your question about being married to an entrepreneur. So, I think just looking back, Mark was and is super supportive, and he was obviously always very focused on Zynga, and is and will be. And in terms of the daily discussion, we're not really talking about our businesses to each other. Our time together is Like there's so many other threads that we have going on about just so many other things that we're working on, and our family and kids, and so.
You guys don't even really talk about it.
No, I mean, I do, but I don't, I think it's sort of similar to something I said before, which was, in terms of at work, I'm partnering and working with so many fabulous people that together we're solving problems and thinking about our challenges. And of course, I can maybe bring a question to Mark, but he's not in it with us, and I'm not in it in his office.
Right.
And,
He's a great entrepreneur, but maybe he's not the best person to answer to help you solve the problems of your
and-
business.
And vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in two really different industries. Right? He's in the gaming industry, and I'm in the
You
design.
guys have never
and
talked about a
commerce.
design, home decor
Yeah, no,
game.
he's really passionate about design and architecture for sure, and I think that's why he was so supportive. But, he's very flexible in terms of letting me do what I need to do. So.
Great. One other thing I think that's is a real credit to you, but I wonder if you just share this. In terms of your workflow and all the things you have going on, you don't have an assistant. You manage everything yourself. Can you talk about, is that part of, is that part of some kind of rules that you have for yourself, or mentality of, hey, I manage everything myself, or what? Where does that stem from exactly?
No, I mean, so at One Kings Lane, there isn't the idea of like a personal assistant. That's just not.
Doesn't exist.
We don't have that sort of setup at our company, and it just, it never was part of our philosophy or part of how we built the company. But no, I do have a great assistant who works for me or with me, and she's just not at my office at One Kings Lane, but
Yeah.
she's helping me in other ways, of course.
Okay.
Well, it'd be, I'm at the office till 7,
Yeah.
or what have you, and it's just great to know that there's someone who I can partner with on items outside of my home,
Yeah.
outside of my office, sorry.
Do you want to take any questions from the audience? Does anyone have a question? Yeah, Denise, go ahead. I'll repeat it. And get it on.
Uh-huh. We did, yeah.
Tell us about raising your first round of funding.
So we were complete newbies. We had never done it before. I mean, I knew more about that space. It's funny because I knew more about sort of the VC world, and Susan knew more about the private equity world because of where she had come. Susan had turned around a bunch of apparel businesses for larger conglomerates, and so her experiences were always with private equity shops. And my experience, just from having been in the web world, was more about VCs. But so our experience in terms of fundraising, we were up and running, and we started getting those phone calls from people in the Valley probably 3 to 4 months. And it was basically because people would call me, and they'd say, my wife loves your site. Or I've heard great things about One Kings Lane from my friends. And I was going and meeting with a lot of people. And I think it was fortunate for us because we had been up and running, and I think that category was sort of a hot category at that time. And as we all sort of know, there's trends in different areas during various parts of time, right? So at that point, there was a lot of interest in sort of what was happening in commerce. And at that point in the US, flash sales was like a new phenomenon. So in terms of our experience, we knew that it was like getting married, right? So you're taking someone's money, and they're going to become your partner. And we took that whole decision so incredibly seriously. And we could have, so basically we were at a point in time where we had to either we could have kept running the business as a lifestyle business, right? Like, we were doing fine. We were confident that we could keep growing on our own. I think that first year we did about 7 million in revenue and top line revenue. And
Wow.
so we were confident that we could keep growing our business as, in our own right. And we were also very aware that we could raise money and not pursue a lifestyle business and pursue a different kind of business. And that also took sort of recognizing and realizing that there was a very big opportunity. And when you take smart money, they expect a really interesting path and returns. And so in terms of fundraising, we kind of thought about it in two ways. One way was we go and work with friends and family and fundraise that way, or we go the VC route. And obviously we chose the VC route. And yes, Aileen is our board member and an amazing partner.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Some big strategic priorities. Well, one was we knew that media, TV, was a really interesting category, and we started partnering with a television property called Million Dollar Decorator. It aired in 2011, but we started working with them in early 2010, and that was it is a Bravo property. And we saw just phenomenal returns from that experience. And
Who saw that? Did anyone see that? I saw it.
Yay!
It's a good show.
And we were just very interested in sort of that convergence between on-air and commerce, right? And we actually closed a very interesting relationship and partnership with Scripps. And Scripps owns HGTV and Food Network. And we are so proud and excited to be working with them. So that was a very big strategic partnership for us.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and Susan and I are not tech co-founders.
Was not having
Was that
a
problem for
technical
us?
co-founder a problem
No,
for you guys to raise
I'm
money?
sure, but we were, we already had a business.
You had traction.
Like, we
yeah.
didn't have to, like I was just explaining, like, we could have kept running our little business on our own, but when these people were, the VC firms that we had met with and were talking to, they were really interested, and they knew, of course, a great shortcoming of ours, of Susan and mine, was that we were not technical. But, we brought, other things to the table. Yes. So that's a great, awesome question, thank you. We haven't talked about this yet. In early 2011, we moved onto our own platform, and prior to that, of course, we hired our VP. We hired a VP of technology. Yeah, and our CTO is Jean, and he's fantastic, and he came from Mint.com. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
How do you manage your time?
Yeah, I'm always trying to learn and think about how I can do everything better. And I'm also now starting and working on a new project for the company, a new brand that we're launching this summer. So for me, being back in the thick of having to manage X, Y, Z, A, B, and C, it's really hard. And I think that being surrounded by awesomely talented and fantastic people can help solve a lot, right? And delegating. And there's a very small group of us working on this new project that's owned by One Kings Lane. And I think just the idea of teamwork and really sort of siphoning off and thinking about who's really good at what and allowing that person to lead. And all of us are leading in various ways, but being true partners to each other. So
Tell us about that. Tell us about what you're working on. Tell us about Hunter's Alley and what it is and
yeah.
what it will do. And it's very exciting. Tell us about it.
Thank you so much. It's a resale marketplace for consumers to consumers. Yep. And we just knew there was a great need, and many of our shoppers and people had been coming to us for a really long time asking, hey, can I sell my things on One Kings Lane? And One Kings Lane is business to consumer. It's definitely not consumer to consumer. And so we finally put together the resources, and I found the small team, and we ran off and have been working on it.
Awesome. And it's, again, is it still in the same vertical, or is it?
No, it's only focused on home.
It is.
Yeah, we've just been super focused on just home.
Cool.
Yeah, the home category.
And then those, in terms of how that works, those will they kind of be co-promoted, or is it something where it will be totally separate and outside, and that you guys are just basically starting a brand new thing?
Oh no,
that just happens to be.
There's ways to
They're
build
all
synergy.
they're all kind of working
course.
together. Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
To answer, that was also, I should have said that earlier, because when she asked me about what's the strategic priority, so thinking about how we can keep innovating and solving problems for people, and the resale marketplace is definitely going to be hopefully a great solution for people who feel as if current options aren't right for them.
Yeah. And that's something that's launching later this summer, or is it?
Yeah, this summer.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi.
What is the long-term plan of One Kings Lane?
I mean, what's
for
the
the
exit?
investors?
I don't know. I mean, we just are so focused on building a great experience that we believe that if we do our jobs right, at some point the investors will have a return, a good return.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're so just focused on what we're doing. Yeah,
Go for it.
I promise. He's looking at me like, really? Yeah, so
Go for it.
we never made any promises to investors. And Susan and I have our own thoughts, but, and actually, no, we all share the same thoughts, and which is, obviously one day down the road, we'd like to build a gem of a company that someone might find interesting, and who knows. But at the end of the day, we also just strongly believe that if we do our jobs right, there will be a return for the employees and for the investors. So.
Are
yeah.
you building an internet treasure?
I know people like to use that term. And
I've heard Mark use it a lot.
he likes to use that term,
Yeah.
but we just want to help solve problems in the
Yeah.
design and home space.
And I think, too, Kleiner Perkins has been in every single round of funding that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a pretty good indication of an investor that's very happy as you continue on. So
Yeah, and I think that they know a lot about e-commerce, and they've been really passionate, and Aileen's been amazing, and Juliet and Bing, and we just feel really fortunate, and also Greylock is an amazing partner
yeah.
too.
Okay, let's do one or two more questions
Oh,
and
I'm
then we'll
fine
wrap
for
up. You good? Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I also sort of skipped over an important detail, which was when I was at Hachette, I got to work very closely with all the home editors and the people on the home. They were called the shelter magazines. So I got to work really closely with those people. And my boss was also launching a very special initiative called Point Click Home, which was a unifying site for all the shelter magazines. So I had great experience working with those amazing individuals who ran the magazines, the shelter magazines, and of course I've always had, perhaps I didn't really speak clearly enough about this, but a great passion for design. So in terms of entertainment, I think what's so brilliant about just the folks who are leading and creating these amazing brands in the entertainment world is brands can be created overnight, right? When you think about hit TV properties and all the extensions that go along with it, there's just some really fascinating things. And I think that, I'm sure I've learned a lot of probably good things about just how to build a brand just from, I was at the Walt Disney Company and I worked for Virgin and, there's just things that all of those companies do really, really well. And also we have, an incredible CMO and marketing team. They are truly phenomenal. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, thank you. You do? Yeah. So, as part of my job at Hachette, I did business development and also did sales at Virgin and worked on some biz dev for Simon when I was at American Idol at 19 Entertainment. And so I felt very comfortable being proactive and making my own contacts. And if I didn't know someone, picking up the phone and calling and introducing myself. So, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Go ahead. What kind of market research did you do to prove that it was going to work?
We just knew that there was a really big gap. We didn't really go and do fancy market research. We just knew. I mean, we were very passionate about the home category, and we knew that. I mean, we're shoppers on One Kings Lane. Yes, yes, yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah, we knew that. Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It was really, we knew that apparel had been done really well in e-commerce, and obviously we thought there was really great room for innovation in the home category and design, and we were also really intrigued by flash sales, and no one had been doing it. And we were like hungry to go to a place where you could find fantastic variety of brands and products and colors and SKUs, and we wanted that for ourselves. So.
Do you have to stop yourself from buying tons of stuff? I don't know. You're
Yes.
you're building this product for yourself, right? Is it?
Yes, there are times when I have to stop shopping.
Right. Cheap seats there. what is the culture at One Kings Lane, and did you engineer that, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, and I think culture always changes and evolves, and when we were just 4 people, we were all on the phone together every single day, working out of each other's homes. So that culture is quite different from today when we're in 3 offices. But I think the notion of teamwork and respect and collaboration is one that will always be with us. So now we have a great person named John Anderson, who's our Chief People Officer, and his team are really excellent and know a lot about building culture and really making sure that we're thinking about things, because it's hard when you're across 3 different cities, and each city does its focus on its own tasks, and that distance can make things really hard and really challenging. And so we feel so fortunate to have just incredible leaders in the people space.
Hi.
Do we work directly with factories? We're working with brands and manufacturers all over the world. So it was how we thought about. Well, no, there's always a process. So in terms of thinking about various categories or lines of supply, we were able to do our research and figure out what's what, who's where, what are we missing, and I think just through doing our homework and really being just trying to be as knowledgeable as we could about where things are produced, who's producing quality products, and just really snuffing out excellent materials and lines is really important to what we're doing.
Okay, Allie, we're going to do 2 more, and then we'll wrap up. Here's one for Steve.
Hey, Ali, I was really curious about your work and your passion for art and your work on the boards of a couple museums. And how do you fit that in, and how does it inform the other work that you do? I started the world's largest audio guide, which basically looks at the whole world like one big museum. So I'm really interested in your art experience and your passion there.
So I have been passionate about art since I was in high school, and I remember always driving up to go to shows at LACMA or MoCA or the Contemporary, and I just have always loved art. And basically I chose to join boards of museums that I find inspiring, and also I was also always motivated by thinking about who could I learn from. And so, for example, Heidi Zuckerman Jacobson, who runs Aspen Art Museum, is a cutting force. I mean, she is an amazing force in the contemporary art world, and what she's done for artists and how she thinks about curating her shows. And I was introduced to her, I think, in like 2009, and a couple years later I joined her board. And to me, just having the opportunity to work with her was like the chance of a lifetime. And then I was really intrigued by the Contemporary Jewish Museum here in San Francisco. And I so vividly remember their opening night in 2008. It was, I think, May or June of 2008. And when that building opened up, it was quite the experience and quite the show. And Connie, who was running the museum, and I had built a relationship. And when she said, when a woman named Sissy Swig had come to me and said, I want you to think about joining the board and being involved. And this is a woman who I have so much respect for, Sissy Swig, and what she's done for museums and for NPR and for the city of San Francisco and for other cities. I just was like, wow, I need to listen to Sissy. And there were also a number of other really incredible people on the board. And so it was really a dialogue, in which case it was, a two-way dialogue. And I also had to be very upfront and say I could join, but there will be times when I can be active, and there will be times when I can't be as active. But I think that how you play a role in a museum or a cultural institution depends on, there's not one answer for everybody. So for me, I figured out ways that I could be a contributor to those communities. So.
We'll do one more and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, Allie. I'm wondering how you approached marketing when you first started, since you're working with all these brands that I guess is like pretty competitive space. What do you think you differentiated your brand from everybody else's?
So how did we differentiate One Kings Lane from other competitors?
When you approached marketing, like when you were just starting out?
So I think, obviously back in '08, we were sort of the first player who was just focused solely on home. And it was really scary because, as you can imagine, there was Gilt and Rue La La and Haute Look, and those were amazing apparel. Those are amazing apparel companies. And of course, we knew that they had the resources to add a vertical like home into their overall business. And so for us, we knew that we just had to be really focused, super knowledgeable, and be able to keep working really, really well with whomever we were doing business with, and making sure that we were really surprising and delighting our shoppers, and making sure that people would think of One Kings Lane as their place that they want to go and peruse, or really just go to for either inspiration or the chance to buy something. So hopefully that was helpful. Obviously things, market shifts, companies come in, companies go out. I think the way that we think about our marketing just continues to evolve.
Can we give Allie a big, huge round of applause? Thank you so much. Let me just, as we just wrap up, since so many people here are new, we have this kind of tradition. If you've come here, you've been educated by Allie, you've been inspired, you've got to meet somebody. If you walk out of here without meeting somebody new, you've totally failed tonight.